Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Photo Diaries podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Lita. Lita is a rebrand specialist, a Sunshine Coast based brand strategist and designer who helps business owners make sense of their brand. She helps founders get clear on what they do, who they're here to serve, and how to communicate that in a way that connects. She's passionate about brand foundations and positioning, helping business owners understand what makes them so different that they can be the obvious choice in their market. She believes branding is about more than visuals, it's about clarity, connection, and being understood. Let's welcome Lita to the podcast. Hey, Lita, thanks for joining us today on the Photo Diaries podcast. We're going to have such a good chat today, all about brand positioning. You and I love to nerd out on this stuff, so welcome.
How much time have you got? Because you know that I can talk about this forever.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. For our listeners to get an understanding of what is brand positioning, because not many people have heard of this. If you're new to business or, started a creative side hustle, what is brand positioning exactly?
So, to get to brand positioning, I think that you need to understand branding a little bit before you can understand brand positioning. So, I think a lot of people, when they think of branding, they think of colors, fonts, logos, all those sorts of things. And yes, that is part of branding, but that's actually your visual identity. Branding is so much more than just your colors and your fonts. So, the way that I see it is that branding is the way that you communicate your brand, and it's the way that people perceive your brand. So, it's more so about clarity and foundations than colors and how you actually physically beautifully show up. So, to get to brand positioning, a lot of people have this idea about brand positioning. And if you've ever heard of any brand strategists talk about this, or if you've listened to podcasts, brand positioning is usually finding a gap in the market and trying to fill that gap. Now, I don't disagree with that. I 100% believe that there is a time and a place to understand the gap because you've got to understand your competitor analysis and see if there's a place for what you're trying to offer. But brand positioning to me is how well you communicate what it is that you want to be known for. And it's the space that you essentially take up in somebody's brain. So if somebody goes, "Oh, I really need this one thing," or "I need an answer to this one thing,"
Mm-hmm.
your the way that you position your brand means that your name is the first thing that comes to that person's head. So it's about
Mm.
becoming the obvious choice to a specific group of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So, if that's the case, then how can a creative business like photography or like designers do this on purpose?
So this makes me super excited because obviously both of us are creatives. And I'm guessing or your audience is a creative audience. So on paper, creatives, photographers, a photographer is a photographer, a designer is a designer. The thing that sets us apart essentially is our style or your like unique intake, essentially. But it's about understanding what makes you different and communicating that. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't like this is a huge advantage for creatives because it's literally being like, you are owning your space, you're owning your unique insights. You're no longer having to rely on being the most reasonably priced or being the wedding photographer. Like you can literally use this to your advantage to position yourself in a way that your audience goes, "Oh my God, no, why have I never thought of this before? Like, why have I only just realized that this is the person for me?" So brand positioning it's not about being the newest, the biggest, the best. It's about being the most obvious, becoming the obvious choice for the people that you're trying to talk to.
So then you mentioned to talk about what sets you apart from the others in your industry or in your area. What if you don't know clearly what sets you apart? Because some photographers might just think, oh, we all take headshots exactly the same way. What makes me different to the next headshot photographer?
I love this question because it's something that so many business owners, like you, everybody would have heard of it's time to niche down. You've got to niche down. And everyone goes, no, but I'm just a wedding photographer. That's my niche. And it's like, well, let's take away the obvious. I know I just said it's about being obvious, but to figure out what makes you different and what sets you apart, what is the one thing that connects you with the people that you're trying to serve? Now, a lot of people go, oh, but I'm a wedding photographer, and that's it. But it's about going deeper than just surface level. Like, when you hear so many people, they'll talk about understanding your target audience. And we say, oh, it's, my target audience is a business owner in her 30s. She drinks oat milk at the local cafe. No. Let's go deeper than this, because people don't buy products and services. They buy emotion. They buy the outcome. So when you're thinking about photography, or in my case, branding, what's the impact that you're making on their life? What's the change that happens for them specifically from working with you? And that is what makes you different to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that is a photographer.
But what if the outcome is still the same between two photographers in the same niche, delivering the same result?
You.
Okay.
Because I can guarantee that your photography work is different to other people's photography work. And I know this is going back to style a little bit as well, but it comes like understanding how to communicate the difference in your style and the difference in your outcome is what's going to set you apart from everybody else. So for me, for instance, in my business, yes, I'm a brand designer. I build brands. But my one thing that I want to be known for is clarity and foundations. So I make branding simple again. I make branding make sense to people. I want people, when they talk about me and my business, I want them to just go, oh, Lita just made everything make sense. So I guess for yourself and other photographers, what's the one thing that you want people to say about you and what you delivered for them? What's the one thing you want to be known for?
And that can be not your style specifically, but it can be more energetic. It could be like the way you perform, with them, and the way you make the process a certain way.
Or it could be, I was literally having a meeting this morning with one of my clients, and she's a PT, and she's like, how do I differentiate from everybody else? And she was talking to me about her packages and everything. And I said, what's the one thing that connects? What's the synergy amongst all of your packages? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And I said to her, it's basics. You're going back to basics. And I was like, she goes, yeah, but isn't that what every single PT does? It's going back to basics. It's restarting. I was like, yeah, but how? What's your method in going back to basics? Because I can guarantee to you, like, that you're going back to basics looks completely different to the person next door. And so we ended up saying, so she doesn't work out of a gym. She works out of going for walks and doing yoga and nutrition. And so her messaging and her wording was all, I help people rebuild, I help people get confident. And I was like, well, that doesn't resonate, because that's what every person is saying, right? So we looked at it and we went, I actually called her consistently basic and underwhelming. They were the exact words that I used for her. And she was like, oh, wow, well, that was a little bit, harsh. And I was like, but it doesn't need to be. Like, I say it with, with heart and with love. But using those words, we got into it. And so she's now starting to think about her brand in a way of like romanticizing basics. And, she wants to work with women to prioritize their time and prioritize themselves again so they can fit fitness back into their life. Now, that sounds so much better than I help women rebuild their strength. Because to me, that goes, oh,
that's
I'm going
generic.
to a gym and I'm just generic and I'm pumping weights. And I was like, but her whole thing is that she wants to help women put themselves first again and enjoy fitness again. So that was her point of difference. That's, she's just, quote unquote, she is just a PT.
Yeah.
It's her unique way of thinking, and it's how you communicate that unique way of thinking that then positions you in a way that your audience is going to go, oh, wow, I really do want to prioritize myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so she also was talking to the pain point of her potential customers, which would be they don't like fitness. So she's the PT to go to if you don't like fitness because she helps you make it fun again. And
100%.
that separates her from the others.
Yeah. So you can see just from that tiny little shift, instead of saying, I work with women to rebuild their strength and confidence, I help women prioritize themselves to bring fun back into fitness.
Mm,
It's two completely different, same thing, but two completely different ways of perceiving her brand.
yes. And the latter version would help somebody connect because they can identify themselves in that brand position. They
100%.
identify themselves and go, oh, yes, she's the one for me because she's helping me do those things that I don't want to do.
100%. Yeah.
Make it as fun. Yeah. Have you got any other examples of brand positioning that can help us solidify what this actually is?
So this, I have a story for this one. Um, my family, every year at Christmas, we get together and it's a big family hurrah, right? And my dad, every single year, buys us Moe and Chandon for Christmas
Mm-hmm.
because it's what you do. It's the wine or the champagne that you do to celebrate big celebrations, right? I personally hate the taste of Moe. Don't like it. I think that it's overpriced and I
Mm,
think that they have positioned themselves so well as the bottle that you buy to celebrate. Think
yes.
about any major sporting event. Who sponsors it? Moe do, because somebody stands up on this podium, they've won the Grand Prix, they're shaking a bottle of Moe, it's the biggest celebration they can possibly have.
Mm.
You automatically associate Moe with celebrating, with joy, with I'm pretty sure their tagline is crafted for celebrations.
Oh,
Like, yeah, it's a perfect example of how they've positioned themselves in the market to be associated with celebrations. Because
mm,
I drink it. I reluctantly drink it on Christmas Day. I know that it brings my dad joy to offer up some Moe,
mm.
but it's that whole celebratory thing. So they have positioned themselves as prestigious, luxurious, and the people that you go to if you want to celebrate a moment. Life's big moments, you use Moe.
Yeah, that is such a perfect example and really helps us pull out how do we want to be identified by, or what do we want to be identified by?
Yep. What's the one thing you want to be known for? For Moe, it's for celebrating.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebration.
Yeah. And I get this question a lot. What's the difference between brand positioning and marketing? And
Mm-hmm.
I know that there can be quite a big like gray line between it. But the way that I explain it is you can't market your business if you don't understand your position. Because you're going to go to any single marketing company, they're going to sit down and be like, right, tell us what your brand is about, tell us what you want to be known for. If you don't understand that
Mm,
before you go to the marketing department, you don't have a marketing campaign.
exactly. And your copy is not going to be strong because you really don't know what you need to say about your business or how you help people. Your
Yeah.
imaging is not going to be strong either because it's not targeting any audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about um I do want to share another example as well on brand positioning, but target audience. So if we are going to think about our marketing, what you also help people with not just what they do, but who they help. So let's
Yes.
talk about the who, expressing who you help in your brand positioning.
I love this topic because I touched on it before. Typically, a lot of people go on demographics. They go, I am going to target women in business, they're service-based businesses, and they're wanting to grow. That's their target audience. It's very surface level. It's very generic. So what I like to do with my clients and what I encourage other people to do is go down into a deeper connection. Now, I know that a lot of people, when they think about their target audience, they go, I help Susie, who is a mother of three who has a side hustle. I help Karen, who is, 45 and she is an amazing entrepreneur and she needs headshots. And I also help Elsie, who is blah, blah, blah. So you've got the demographics, but what is the one thing connects them together? What are their values? What do they want out of life? Like, what is like, get to the deeper part. What problems do they want solved? What do they
Mm.
desire? Like, how are you actually going to help this person? And that's where the impact then, because I have my whole philosophy is clarity, which is what you want to be known for, community, which is who you help, and then impact, which is the change that you make in their life. If you don't understand your target audience, their values, and what they deeply desire, or what their biggest problems are, you're not going to know the impact, which is arguably one of the most important parts of your business that you need to know. You're not going to know the impact that you make on their life, which is the one thing that's actually going to get them to choose you over somebody else.
Yeah, and actually that's the one main thing that will resonate with them is when they hear that you can impact them with the problem that they have and the
Yeah,
desire that they want. So all those things combined help them realize that you're the right choice for them because
yeah.
you're helping in the right way.
And it's almost like you're answering their questions before they've even asked them. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like you're tapping into what it is that they're struggling with, what it is that they're desired. People don't buy features. People don't buy just because they want to buy something. They buy because they genuinely think that what you're offering is going to make their life better. So you need to understand what it is that they need.
So then how do you understand what they need if they are at the moment an imaginary client? How do you understand or imagine what they need?
I like to do research from other people, like not to copy, not to do anything like that. But if you're looking at a great place to start, if you're a startup or if you're don't have a regular influx of clients, I like to go to not necessarily competitors, but other people within my industry and look at their reviews on their website, look at their testimonials, and see what people are saying that they got from somebody else. So if somebody's going onto your website, like say I went on to, I don't know any photographers. So say I went onto a different photographer's website. Sorry, I should have been prepared for that. But say I went onto your website. I'm a photographer. I go onto your website and it was like, Grace made me feel so comfortable. She was the energy in the room. She like brought out my personality and she really made me shine in a way that I didn't know. Like, we're making this up. But
Yeah.
you can look at the words and you can look at the stuff and the problems that other people are solving for your ideal client. And then you can sort of understand what it is that they're desiring, what it is that they want, and then play around with that in your own way.
That is a very cool technique. I've never heard of that before.
There's so many people. I typically don't necessarily work with startups. I usually work with established businesses who are ready to like grow. But I've definitely done my fair share of startup businesses. I was a startup myself. Like we've all started somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I love going and taking inspiration, or because it's scary doing market research yourself, right? If
Mm,
you're a brand new person and you go and you're like asking people what it is it that you want from me, but it's very daunting. It's very almost like salesy, and it's very like I find it a little bit sleazy sometimes. So
hmm
yeah, going and having a look at the people that you admire in your industry and seeing what other people are saying about them is a great way to sort of gauge what it is that your clients are actually looking for.
That is a good way to understand what they're looking for. And it will be of benefit to us because once we understand what they're looking for or the transformation they're looking to have, we can use that in our marketing right
And
throughout our business.
you can pull out the exact language that they're using as well. So
Exactly. And when you pull out their exact language, they feel seen and
seen.
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how you communicate with your audience. It's making them feel seen, it's making them feel heard, and it's positioning you as the obvious choice because they go, she's in my head. How did she
Yeah.
know that that's what I was saying? So it's all about kind of understanding your audience, understanding what they want, how they speak, and using that to your advantage. I had a client of mine who she's been in business for a little while now, and she was restructuring one of her packages. And she was just like, I don't know how to talk about this in a way that's going to resonate with my clients. And I said,
Mhm.
well, would your clients mind if you reached out to them? And she's like, oh, probably not. So I said, let's put together a Google form and we'll ask them some questions. Send it out to 10 of your past clients and let's see the words and the responses that you're getting. And so out of those 10 clients, there was so many words that they continuously, 10 different people, but they continuously kept on saying the same words, the same phrases. And I was like, that right there is how you talk about what you do,
That's
because that's
interesting.
what they want.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes when a client comes to you, they don't necessarily know what they want. They just think they want the basics and they don't necessarily understand their own transformation that they're looking for. So it's up to us to help them get that transformation.
Trust me, being a brand designer and having to design someone's like visuals is so hard because they come back and they're like, no, but that's not how it looked in my head.
Yeah.
So it's you know, you spend all this time and energy building out this amazing brand, and then they go, oh, but no, I really wanted to use the color blue. But that's where it comes back to you as your own creative, as your own professional, to then take it upon yourself to educate and to, I guess, become the expert and let them know why you've done things in a certain way,
Mm,
not necessarily justify, but they've come to you because you're the expert. They've come to you because they think you know what you're talking about. As a creative, we're always going to get people pushing back on what we present, right?
hmm
It's then up to you to stand up and say, well, no, well, not necessarily no, but at least educate them on why you've done certain things certain ways.
mm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So back to brand positioning. So the way I want to see brand positioning as well with my photography mentoring clients, one thing I ask them is where do you want to position yourself in the market? Do you want to be the affordable branding photographer or the affordable architecture photographer, the one that's suitable for everybody, for every budget? Or do you want to be the premium choice, the luxury brand photographer? So when I think about this angle, I consider Kmart versus Seed Heritage. I recently purchased a linen dress from Seed Heritage. I paid attention to the entire experience. From walking into the store, somebody came up to me and asked me if I needed assistance choosing a size or looking at anything today. So I said to her, yeah, sure, I'd like this dress in my size. Could you help me with that? She took it to the change room for me. She made that process easy. From the change room, she was ready to take that item if I was ready to purchase it or put it back on the shelf. From there, I purchased it. The purchasing process was, are you a member with us? I'll look you up. She packaged it up in tissue paper with their branded sticker. It was placed in a bag carefully, and then the bag was handed to me, not over the counter, but she stepped out from around the counter, faced me face to face, and handed me the bag of what I just purchased. Now, that is a premium experience, and Seed Heritage is somewhat a luxury brand versus if you were to go into a store who is, say, Kmart or Big W, that's positioned as a brand, every person at every budget. And you go in there, nobody's there to help you. You have to serve yourself. I don't even know if there's anybody who serves you at the checkout anymore in Kmart. I don't really go there, but the clothes aren't taken care of. They're all just chucked everywhere.
There's no
They're
stock on the shelves.
no stock on the shelves. The clothes are treated like $2, like treated like trash. They're not respected. The clothing, the items on the shelf are not respected. Versus a store like Seed Heritage, they respect every item because it's priced at a higher value. It's
Yeah.
made with quality products. It's made with quality fabrics. So,
And that brand, that customer experience is written into their brand strategy. That doesn't just happen because the people that work at Seed Heritage like their jobs more and actually like the clothes. It's because it's actually part of their brand backbone. I can guarantee you that when somebody is a new employee at Seed, they would turn around and they would get trained on the expectation that you are to uphold when you work for a company like Seed Heritage.
yes.
It's funny that you mentioned Kmart because I was going to say another example of brand positioning is Kmart. And I was going to say, you walk into somewhere like Seed and you walk out, well, yeah, you walk out thinking, I'm going to get a product that is, it's going to last me a long time. It's going to be this amazing brand experience. Versus you walk into Kmart and you understand that you're probably buying a handbag that you're going to wear to a fancy dress party and throw it out after the first time. Like there's this expectation about the way that they've positioned themselves. And interestingly enough, Kmart back in 2018 repositioned themselves from being like the everyday, because Kmart used to be, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but Kmart tried to come into Coles supermarkets for a little while there because they're all part of the same group. And
Okay.
Kmart was positioned as almost like the everyman, you know, supermarket convenience store where you get your clothes and all that sort of thing.
Hmm.
2018, they repositioned themselves and introduced Anko, and they really heavily positioned themselves to be everyday low prices for women and family.
Hmm.
They did this so subtly, but it became such a big movement, and they've taken off since then by this subtle repositioning. And then the rise of Kmart dupes, like Kmart has become famous because they knock people off. They are the cheap and nasty version. Not
Vision.
nasty, that's bad.
Yes,
But
yes.
like, you know what I mean? Like you don't walk into Kmart thinking that you're going to get like if somebody comments on a handbag and you're like, "Oh my God, I love your handbag." And they go, "Oh, it's from Kmart." And you're like, "Whoa, look at the quality of that." You're like almost blown away. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
don't expect things that come from places like Kmart and that to be of good quality, but that's because they have positioned themselves and they've planted this expectation that they are almost single use.
Yeah, single use, exactly. Single
Yeah.
use, no service, no customer service. You can't expect much from us,
It's not an experience.
not an experience.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I avoid it at all costs.
I
Because
go in at seven
I'm
o'clock in the morning when there's no one around. I
yeah,
get what I need and I run
I'm
out.
kind of I'm an experience first person.
Yep.
That's why I actually hate Woolworths. And I know I hate even more Aldi.
Mm.
And my hubby and I both were on the same page with Aldi. Then he started to like it. And I said, no, you can't like Aldi. Let's be in their non Aldi club. And the reason I don't like it is because there's no music in there, there's no atmosphere in there.
I've never noticed that.
Yeah, and it feels like a bit of a warehouse type environment. And my best friend loves it. And she loves it because it reminds her of the supermarkets in Europe. She's from Malta, so it reminds her of home. And I'm seeing it differently through her eyes now.
Mm.
But brand position and the brand's expectation attracts a certain clientele. And
100%.
you, as a photographer or graphic designer, also need to make a decision on your brand's position based on the experience you want to deliver. So
Yep.
if you want to be, you know, cheap and cheerful, fast turnaround, fast delivery, you're here for everybody at every budget, there's no leaving anybody out, then that's a certain experience and a certain price point you're going to position yourself in versus you're a premium photographer. Not everybody is going to be able to afford you. And you're okay with that because you
Yep.
don't need everybody to work with you because your prices are higher.
Yep. And it's all about leaning into that experience as well. Like to understand that you're cheap and cheerful, but then you can't then, well, if you're giving off that you're cheap and cheerful, but then you're trying to charge premium prices. You've just got to make sure that what you're committing to is marrying up. Like I do it all the
Yes.
time. I look at people's like from a branding point of view. I went to a cafe this morning actually, and it was like this real health conscious. It was all, we can add some protein powder into your smoothie if you want to. We only cook with seed oil. Like it was very much, and it's attached to a gym. So it was very much all about like health, wellness. Then I went onto their socials and it didn't match at all. And I was just kind of like, you've got to be consistent.
Mm,
Whatever you decide that you are going to do, consistency. And I know that everybody throws the word consistency around like there's no tomorrow, but decide what you want to be known for and be consistent with it. Because there's nothing
mm.
more confusing for a consumer if your message changes all the time, if your brand colors change all the time,
Mm.
if your packages change all the time, if your pricing changes all the time. It's just the inconsistency confuses your audience, which makes them move on quickly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we see it all the time, probably without being conscious of it. We'll
Yeah,
see maybe a hotel chain, or I probably don't see it with car brands, but like, restaurants, cafes, sometimes even clothing brands where their brand isn't consistent with their socials. And it does make you go, hold on a minute, is somebody taking over their socials for a moment? Because this doesn't match what I see on their website or what I see in their campaigns. So
yeah.
that matching of consistency and your standard is one of the most important things to build trust.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is about clarity behind your brand. If you don't understand your brand properly, if
Mhm.
you, as the founder, don't understand your brand properly, your audience sure as hell isn't going to either.
So help us understand our brand properly. What is this clarity point you're talking about? How can we ask ourselves some questions there?
So, my whole framework is based around clarity, community, and impact. The number one thing that I ask every single person even before I start working with them is what's the one thing that you want to be known for?
Mm-hmm.
And not on a surface level, not a photographer in Canberra. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you want people to say about you if they're talking about you in a room?
Mm.
So if you can't understand that, that would be the first place to start, in my opinion.
And then what's next?
Who? Community. Who is it that you want to be talking to? And I've already said it, not on a surface level, but like, what are their values? What connects them? What is the one thing that is the common denominator against everything that you do? Like, who is your community? And that's
Mm.
why I call it community, because it's not who is the person that you're talking to. If you were to build a community, what would these people like? Why would they want to join? Like, what are their values? What are their beliefs? What do they wholeheartedly believe in as a consistent group of people?
Mm.
That's who your target audience is.
So for my personal branding clients, most of my clients there are executive coaches. So that's my community.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I'm like, I've it's so hard because niching down is super scary. And I understand it. You're kind of like, no, but I'm cutting off a huge chunk of my potential clients. But by you being super specific on who you want to work with, it's filtering out the people that you probably get. You know, when you jump on a call and you're like, you get this gut feeling and you're like, oh, I don't really want to work with them, but I will because I will, by being super specific on your community, you're going to get less and less and less of that gut feeling because you're going to be attracting the people who genuinely like want to have what you're offering. So for me, I was like, oh, I'm a graphic designer for small business owners. But then I did a lot of work and I'm like, the one thing that connects my community is that they're founder led businesses and community minded. So
Mm.
that's who I work with. And I don't mean community minded as in like they're running charities and stuff. The people that I work with wholeheartedly believe that what they're doing has a massive impact on the lives of the people that they're serving.
Mm.
So my people are community minded, founded led business owners, which is so different to I work with small business owners.
Yeah, totally. It's so narrowed down, targeted, and it means that those people will find you. The people that aren't in that bucket won't be hell yes. They'll sort of drift and like second guess working with you. They might not agree with your pricing because they actually aren't your ideal client.
And you'll end up spending hours and hours and hours sending emails back and forward with them, trying to convince them that you are the right person for them, even though
Mm.
deep down you got this gut feeling that you're like, oh, this has been so much harder than what it needs to be.
Mm.
But that person probably, and you know it, that person isn't, for me, a community minded, founder led person.
Mm.
So being super specific, again, it's scary, but it's going to be so much more beneficial for your mental health as well as your business,
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, totally. And we'll streamline the process for you as
Yes.
well in
Yeah, it
everything from
filters
your
out the people that you
marketing.
don't want to work with.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then the last one is impact, and I've already gone over this as well, but the last part of my framework, I guess you could call it, is impact. Really understanding the shift that you make in the lives of the people that you work with.
Tell us more about that because I know for sure photographers aren't thinking about that. We're always selling the inclusions.
You're
We're
selling the
not,
features.
yeah, the features and inclusions, and we're not talking about the impact. So if you were to think about photographers, what is the impact in your words? And
Well,
how,
I've got a perfect example of this. I worked with a home birthing photographer a little while ago,
mm-hmm,
and she was talking about, as you said, you walk away with, XYZ amount of photos. I am a fly on the wall, so you don't notice me in your birthing experience, like all those sorts of things. And I was like, that's amazing, but the people who are having home births and the people who are getting her photographer to come in and capture that moment,
mm-hmm,
it's not about what they get. It's about the emotion that's attached with that. So with her, we really tapped into, so her style of photography was really sort of like nostalgic and that sort of thing. So
mm-hmm,
we really tapped into what is the emotion that comes with your style of photography. So we rebranded her to being the home birth storyteller. So
mm,
everything that she does is all about storytelling. It's about preserving memories. It's about bringing the nostalgic back into your lifestyle. It's about how often, realistically, are you ever going to look at those photos? I mean, you might for a little while. I'm not a photo-y sort of person.
I
So I,
am, and I had a birth photographer just because my doula was a photographer, so she
yep.
she included that, and I never look at them, but to be honest, I'm glad I have them to give to my daughter down the track.
So that's 100% why. So, like, again, it's not about, oh, you're going to get 30 printed photos. I'll put one in a frame for, they don't care about that. It's all about preserving the memory. It's all about telling a story. It's all about capturing that moment. So the impact that we could have used for her is, be able to retell the story down the
Mm,
track, or, it's all about the emotions when it comes to that impact.
yeah, and capturing that moment in time that you can never replace, and sometimes it's hard to put into words. Now you have images to have a legacy, an ancestral thing to pass along to your daughter, that her daughter, and blah blah blah.
But it's again, it's bringing back to that storytelling,
Mm,
So that's why we were kind of like, and because I mean, we both know that giving birth is quite an achievement. It's not necessarily the most glamorous moment of your life either, but being able to capture these beautiful, like you're the most raw, you're
mm,
the most vulnerable, you're the most emotional that you've ever been when you're giving birth. And for
mm,
her to be able to capture, or for a birth photographer to be able to capture these moments, that preserves that moment in time for forever.
mm.
So
And
it's
also,
is tapping into those emotions, tapping into that side of things rather than just being like, I'm a photographer. I promise I'll respect your boundaries and you won't even notice me. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah, and also like communicating, especially in a delicate situation like birth photography, communicating the trust factor. I
yeah.
don't necessarily need to know that she's just going to be a fly on the wall and I'm not going to notice she's there. It's not really about that for me. So she also needs to tap into, okay, what would my client be feeling? Well, it's a delicate situation. Is she going to be respectful? Is she not going to talk all the way through it and be totally annoying me? You know?
And so this particular photographer, her package included support all the way through. So I think it was from something like 32 weeks onwards. She would come and be part of the experience so that she could really understand what it was that you wanted out of the birthing situation, all those sorts of things. And then from 32 weeks onwards, she's on call. So it was kind of like, because you don't know when a baby's coming.
Oh, yeah, true.
So it was kind of like, especially home birthing, it's very,
Mm.
we're on.
Yeah, yeah.
So her whole message was about she like almost, yes, she's a fly on the wall, but she understood your situation and she was so delicate about your situation. And she really made sure that she understood a lot of people have birds in bars, like the actual bath in their house and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So she would come to your house beforehand and like ask the questions of like, how do you want it to be set up? You know what I mean? It wasn't just a book me, let me know when you're due and I'll be there. It was, she would immerse herself and then she would craft the story along the way up until the birth.
Mm, that's a very good
So
example.
she became, rather than just being the home birth photographer, she became the home birth storyteller. It's telling
Mm,
nostalgic stories through your home birthing experience.
mm. So in that, you feel like that differentiation really is a thing that can elevate one's brand aside from the visual part of your brand. It's this differentiation, it's diving into what you're doing to give the transformation to your client, how you're doing it, and connecting it to what they desire in the first place.
Unpopular opinion from a brand designer, the visuals are the least important part of your business. Not business, sorry, of your branding. The visuals come last because if you're just putting together something based on a Pinterest board or something that you've gone, oh, I really like the look of that.
Mm,
Again, we're tying it back to that consistency and understanding. If you are, let's do a really obvious choice. If you are a builder and you go on Pinterest, you go on Canva, you throw together a house with a hammer, make it on the Sunshine Coast. All builders here like to be blue and like blue because we're on the coast.
yes, yes.
So throw together, there's a house, there's a hammer, Bob's building Sunshine Coast. It's so generic. It doesn't tell people what you do. It's, yeah, okay, yeah, you're a builder. But why? Why am I going to come to you? What makes you
Mm,
different from GJ Gardner Homes or from, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
like, yes, you can. And a lot, and that's why I work with a lot more established businesses because they've had that time to sort of settle in and kind of be like, they're not frantic. They're
Mm,
kind of like, okay, I know that what I'm doing works,
mm-hmm.
but let's elevate it and let's really go deep and make sure that we're getting the most out of our brand, communicating my brand and making it so obvious that people are coming to me.
Yes.
So I personally believe that the visuals should be the last thing that you do if you're rebranding your business. Key
Mm.
point, if you're rebranding your business.
Yes, because a new business is a totally different thought process.
Yeah.
Speaking of building companies, there's a local Thai restaurant. I think it's Thai, something like that, in my suburb. The logo is called Meat House Point or Meat something house something. Um, and the logo is designed with a house. The font choice plus the house logo instantly makes me think it's a building company, but it's actually a bistro. And every time I drive past this logo, I think if only they knew that this logo wasn't done right because it looks like a building company, not a restaurant, not somewhere you're
Yeah.
going to eat.
My number one piece of advice for anybody thinking about visuals, don't go cliche, don't go obvious.
Obvious. Yeah,
If
exactly.
you are starting out and you are just confused, well, not confused, but you're like, oh, I just need to get a logo,
Mm.
stick with a word mark.
Yeah, totally.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Mm.
Stick with a word mark and build from that. The amount of people who start like lash businesses and they put an eyelash, like a flicky eyelash, and like have a cursive font underneath it and call it like Talia's Lash and Beauty. Like you're just blending in.
Mm.
Like, and I get it.
Said
Like
that before.
you're opening the doors for the first time. You're trying to just make things work. And
Mm.
I have nothing against Canva logos. I have nothing against, just doing what you need to do in order to get to start up.
Mm.
But once you've been in business for a little while, say 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and you know you've got proof of concept, you've got proof of receipt, take the time to really explore your business and understand. from the inside out before you rebrand.
Mm, and understand your brand positioning, which
Yep.
is something people can work with you on. So
Yes.
that brings us to how can people follow you, Lita? Because if they are rebranding, if they are wanting some brand strategy for this stuff that we've talked about today, how can people follow you? What can they be part of?
So I am on Instagram mostly. So it's at heylita.branding. And the easiest way to get into my world is I have a free masterclass. It's download and do it whenever you want to. And it's all about optimizing your Instagram to position your brand in a way to attract your dream clients. It's a super easy, super simple. It takes about 20 minutes to watch. I
Mhm.
tried to strip it right back so it's easier to digest and then you can take action straight away.
Mhm.
So you can find that on my Instagram, you can find it on my website. Or if you're ready to do a little bit more of a deep dive, my signature package is called the Brand and Focus. And that's where we have a one-on-one session together and we really dive deeply into how you're currently positioned in the market and where you want to be positioned. And we come up with a bit of an action plan on what your brand's currently saying and how we can get it to say what you want it to be saying. So
Mm.
that's my brand and focus session. If you want to come into my world a little bit more.
Excellent. Thank you, Lita. And just to clarify, you spell Lita Lita.
Sure do.
So
Yep.
when you say it fast, it could be spelled any old way.
Yeah, sorry. I'm going to blame my parents for that, naming me with an obscure name.
That's a beautiful name. Well, thank you, Lita. So much value for my audience. I know that they would have got a lot out of it. And this kind of discussion is something that photographers really need at the beginning of the year or at any point in their business. So we value your insight and your education. And thanks for being on the Photo Diaries podcast.
Thank you. And if anyone just wants to come and jump on, say hey in my DMs, I love chatting business to anybody. So come on over and say hey.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.